Good morning, LinkedIn. Happy HubSpot Hump Day Wednesday. This is Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolyn. We're here for part two with RevOps Wizard, Emerson. How you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, I'm excited to get into the weeds with this stuff.
Yeah. So you thought we might have been in the weeds yesterday. Just wait till today. And before we jump in, something I'm trying to get better about, this whole mission of helping people understand, that HubSpot is moving towards customer platform, is no longer a marketing and sales solution. I'm serious. And another way that I'm trying to accomplish it is co-leading a new customer platform hug with one George B. Thomas. Our first session for that is June 26th. At 10 o'clock Central, and we're gonna, set the tone foundation. What is a customer platform? So we'd love to have you join us. Back to the topic today, where we're going to focus on leads, but yesterday where we left it, again, it's one of the biggest impacts here as to how we're viewing customer life cycles and customer life cycle stages and how we manage that plus deals plus leads, across teams, and how are we supporting the sales team to not, just make them do a bunch of more work, that might not, add value to their day. We left it here, and this is in a, fairly fresh portal. And we updated some stages with Emerson's guidance. And before we jump into leads, again, this is like kind of the opposite of, oh, let's go quick on leads and let's start making leads, and and then we're going to hand it off to sales. Like, no, like, we're not doing that. One of the double-edged swords of HubSpot is, there's a ton of guardrails in place and some out of the box setup in place to help you do this the right way if you've never done it before, just to help you think about it. But there's a few places like this one where, as soon as you have a strategy designed for your business, you're going to turn a lot of this stuff off. So before I do that, I'm going to get your thoughts, Emerson, on, how you approach this section right here and maybe other sections like it in HubSpot.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I like to have everything in one place. So if I were to leave any of these on, but I have workflows also managing other life cycle stages, like it can get confusing. You don't know where to look for things. If I were to ever leave and somewhere to take over this stuff, like, I want to be able to go to one place. And I would say that these, like, I look at like the second one, right? Set life cycle stage when a deal is created. That for me isn't like the opportunity stage. Now I could set it to, SQL or something else. For me though, like, I turn these all off and I like to have workflows manage all of my life cycle stages. That way I can make sure it's really custom and I have control over everything.
Turn them off we shall, except for this first one, right?
Yeah, I like the first one to just stay on. Everything should be in that first stage. If it meets criteria for further on, it's going to be taken care of through my automations I build.
And here's the ultimate goal, people. What's going on, Justin?
Hey, Justin.
Made his life so easy with stages and workflows.
This is one of my sales team members. He's an AE at our company. So
yep, your job is done, man.
Yeah, that's the best compliment you can get in RevOps is when your salespeople say, "You make my life easier." Right.
Right. That is the ultimate goal.
Yep.
And if you haven't gotten there with a tool like HubSpot, I'll just say reach out. Like, that is the ultimate goal, and this tool should make it much easier than most other tools available to you, I'll say. Yeah. So we turn those off. Now where do we go?
Yeah, so there's different trains of thought. Some ultimately we want this managed through workflow, but I do an extra step and I create criteria lists for each of these lifecycle stages that allows me to make sure that I'm building properly, right? I can see what contacts and companies are falling into the lifecycle stage lists that I build. And then once I'm confident with that, then I can turn on workflows that point to those lists for lifecycle stage enrollment.
Okay. So let's create one of those lists.
Yeah.
It's contact based.
So for us, I do contact based until they become a customer. And because, our business, once we sell a company, like that's it. There's no other departments we sell into. Some businesses may want to just do strictly contact based, but for us, I do contact based up until customer, and then beyond it's company based.
Okay.
Yep. And then there's some tricky ones. So I always start at the end, right? Because ultimately what you're going to do is something that meets, let's say, like an SQL criteria. They may meet that criteria, but they may find themselves in like further stages if you're not careful. So I actually start from the end, and then every list that I build working backwards says if this criteria is met and also they're not part of a further life cycle stage, enroll. And so that's why I start from the end. And for me, that's other, right?
Okay.
So things that don't fit into our normal life cycle stages.
So what is a naming convention you like for your lists?
Oh, perfect question. So I always do a numbered system so that I can sort alphabetically, and I get, contact is my first one. And I always do the 0, 1, period, and then life cycle stage.
Okay.
And I do specify, is it contact life cycle stage or company life cycle stage? Other is interesting because you're actually going to want both. You're going to want a contact other, and you're going to want a company other for those that aren't associated.
Okay. So our number is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So 0, 9.
Yep. And then I do other, and then I'll do a dash. Let's build a contact based one first.
Dash contact.
Correct.
No spaces anywhere.
You can. It's up to you. I like the spaces. It kind of separates things nice and easy. But
so do I.
Yeah. Right.
Spaces after the.
I do a space after the. Yeah.
There we go. All right. And this list.
Yeah, I say contacts that don't fit. Whatever.
That are. That have the life cycle stage other. All right. And that's an active list because this will go up and down over time, as opposed to a static list that represents a single moment in time. All right. Is it as simple as I think it is?
It can be. Yeah, it can be simple. Folks may have certain criteria that they want. For us, though, I have created a property, and it is lead qualification. Or it's contact qualification status. And if it's unqualified, it gets moved to other. Right, just skips all of our funnel stages, goes to the end, and moves out of our systems.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the case of this list, I'm just pulling up life cycle stage. Perfect. Or you're saying that what you just described is a part of this list filtering too?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you can do another thing that I do is if we'll build the second list. We're actually going to I realize we should have done the company list first, because what we'll want is any contact that is associated with a company that is on a company other lifecycle stage list. We'll want to enroll them in this too.
All right. So we'll just save that list real quick.
Yep.
Go back to lists. Create a company-based list. That is also other.
That is correct. Yep.
And our company life cycles match our contact life cycles?
Yes.
All right. Other company. All right. Companies labeled as other life cycle stage other. Mm-hmm. All righty. And this one,
Yeah, I have some custom properties. So, we'll have a lot of contacts in our record that aren't going to come through our normal sales process, right? These might be partners, investors, like anything that, and we use a custom property called organization type. So if they fit that criteria, then I would want them moved out of our normal. We don't want to be marketing to these folks. They're not going to come through our sales process.
Okay. But for now, we can just use. So you actually don't use this property for these lists?
The life cycle? No, ultimately not.
Okay.
Everything
So
else, yeah, everything else should have a life cycle stage assigned to it, unless it's in this particular list. And so this is one where you really get like, what do I want? What are those contacts and companies in our database that just aren't going to go through our normal go-to-market process?
Right. Okay. So this is just for the other label.
Exactly.
So instead of, so at this point, the list, they will not have the label other yet.
Correct.
Yep. And you're going to use the workflows to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
This is our entry and exit criteria lists that then the workflows will assign the lead status based on what's in this list, or the lifecycle stage based on what is in this list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we have type, and we can just say if they're a vendor.
Sure. Yep.
Right. We're not trying to.
You may want partner. You may want. It just really depends on your own business. But yeah, anything that any records that you have in your system that you can tag it to, and it might be industry, right? There's a lot of different. We don't sell to this particular industry. For some reason, there's a lot of contacts or companies in our database. Let's get those to other lifecycle stage.
Right. Okay. And this is a good example. Like when we talk about lifecycle stages and organizational types and like, all these different ways we can classify, the records in the system. This is really where the alchemy, comes into play, how you use all these different ways to then support tools like lists and workflows and, the rest of the system. That's why I like, really thinking through this part and having, something like this done ahead of time, goes the longest way. And if some of us had our way, like you would not be able to build out the HubSpot until you did something like this. Right. So back to lists over here. So, okay. So we're using a type field to say, this is a list of companies that we don't know enough about, or we know enough about to say we're not going to sell to them. So then I'm going to use this list to action a workflow that assigns the label of customer lifecycle.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to see where I can edit that. So I'll just say to be labeled as lifecycle stage other. All right, and I'll give a little refresh. Said it once, said it a million times. If HubSpot ever shows you something you don't expect to see, hit refresh. So back to our contact list. This is another case where we are using this list to let the workflow label them.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this one, I would say, if a contact is associated with any of those companies on that company other list, let's mark them as other as well.
So
list membership.
There we go.
Yep. Right there. Yep. And so if they're a member of not that list, you want the company list. Oh, okay. So this is where we got to get tricky. So yeah, go back to we need to point to the company list.
Right.
So on a company object.
There we go.
Yep. and then list membership.
Oops. Yep. All right. List membership.
There it is.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
we're
then
good.
I do like to change that contact is associated to, and I like to make sure that's primary. Sometimes we do have contacts that are associated to companies that's not their primary, that maybe we wouldn't want them to be, in this other category.
Okay. And if we were to have other association labels set up,
Mm-hmm.
we would have that option here as well.
Yep.
Yeah. This is what I'm telling people, man. Another chat came up today, like the company and contact association and how you manage that. Like Emerson's done it effectively using workflows, right? Not any of the base like automation that just gives people headaches, right? And honestly, like if you haven't figured out manually in the process, like how you want to be associating, like this is not a problem that you should try to automate like away and wish it would wish you. This is one of the most important pieces, in my opinion, that can drive efficiency throughout the system, right? Because if we're trying to manage relationships with people and it's based on where they sit in the company or who they are, and we can use these association labels for that, it just drives so much if you take the time to understand what that looks like, for your business. Because it's a challenge everybody's having right now, like especially once you take it to like what we're talking about today, like once you go full life cycle and we're going beyond leads and traditional lead management, traditional, sales management. You've got a lot of different contacts that you're trying to, juggle from all these different companies. So those labels are becoming more and more important. So we've got a couple lists. So in theory, we'll have a list for each life cycle stage.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but we can work off of this one by itself, or should we make, one more type?
Yeah, let's do one more type. Let's do a company or a customer. That renewal expansion cycle, life cycle stage, and we'll base it on the company.
All right, and that is 08.
Correct.
LTV, or you want the renewal?
Let's do renewal expansion.
Okay.
So that LTV is a it's a philosophical life cycle stage. You could leave it out, but for the most part, you'll always have customers in renewal expansion opportunity.
Current customers that should be renewing and or buying more stuff. What's going on, Pedro? Good to see you today. Thanks for stopping by. All right, so we're gonna add a filter.
Yeah. The first filter that you want to do is list membership, and you want to make sure that they're not part of the other list, right? And you're going to do this with literally every list that you would create this way. You're going to do the same thing, and you're going to say they're not a member of any list that's further along in the life cycle stages.
Okay.
So you don't want them to be a member of the other. Yep, not a member. That's perfect.
Yep. So we're building steps here.
Yeah.
And so you only have to put in one list.
Yeah.
And if it's that, then it's includes all the other lists as well.
And the reason that we do that is you might have a criteria for, let's say, SQL, right? Maybe that criteria is that they came through the lead process and they got to the end and booked a meeting. Well, you can do that, and when if your customer success team is booking meetings with people for renewal expansion and coming through that prospecting tool, which I do have, well, they're already customers, right? They're not. We want to make sure that if they're doing that, that life cycle stage doesn't change. They're a customer. They're not an SQL just because they met that criteria. So we say if they do this criteria that puts them in the SQL life cycle stage list, but they're already in the customer list, then they're a customer. Right?
Yep.
That makes sense.
That it does.
Cool. And so for the other criteria for this list would be, is there a closed won deal associated with them, right?
Okay.
That's where they're gonna
So is that an or?
no, that's going to be an and
Yep.
then a company property, and then my apologies, deal property.
So deal.
Yep, and then deal property, and then I do is closed won. True. Mm-hmm. And you may, for some businesses, they may have deals that are closed won or specific pipelines. We keep our stuff pretty clean. So if there is a closed won deal, they would be a customer.
Right.
Yep. And that's the simplest way. There might be other criteria, for us, because we did migrate to HubSpot after running business for a few years. There are some customers that don't have a closed won deal in HubSpot. I made sure that those were included as well.
Yes. And this is a good example. Like if you have been using deals for things other than sales, or closed won is not the end of your deal pipeline because there's onboarding or project management that you're doing after, this is the impact or the value that you are not getting out of the system by being able to easily define your customer set, quickly and accurately. See that, more often than we'd like. Sounds like we're done with this list though.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So we've got our other lists and a renewal expansion list. And let me just let's see here. This sidebar is cool.
Mm-hmm.
You can just edit stuff right here. All right. And we'll do we need to do dash company here?
I like to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to keep things nice and clear.
Yep. All right. And then autosave. Yeah, it's my first time seeing the sidebar. Very cool.
Yeah. There's some new autosave little things like that middle column in the record. There's little things like that. It's just you do it for the first time, like, oh, I don't have to click save every time.
Yes. Except when you do.
Except when
and then you miss it and get mad. But always look for the big orange button.
Yep.
Okay. Where are we off to next?
So yeah, after you've built all of these, we don't have to go through every single one, but build all these lifecycle stage lists. For me, then it's so if we can go back to that lifecycle, the go-to-market model, I can just kind of map out how we, right? So the changes in lifecycle for us is contact, MQL. So for us, that's based off lead scoring, which Chris, you can plug that that hug for lead scoring.
Yeah, a lot of fun things happening on the way for lead scoring. In principle, I'm not a huge fan of the concept because it's, from my experience, it's very, very hard to get it right, and you need a really pristine portal. At the same time, they're working on better ways to help you get it right. So it's good stuff, and I'd recommend checking out the admin hug recording from yesterday.
So what I base MQL off lead score, and we do have, we have I wouldn't say it's pristine, I wish, but we have a good enough system that our lead scoring can accurately, that's our criteria for that list for MQL, right? So if a lead score bubbles above, 25, then lifecycle stage changes to MQL, a lead is created, and then runs through workflows to assign that lead to the correct salesperson, puts that lead in new, and then that salesperson, the moment that they, because there's automations in that lead object, right? So when they place a phone call or they send out an email, it's going to automatically move to attempting. That's when I have a sales accepted lead, right? Because the salesperson is saying this lead that was in new that came from marketing or elsewhere is worthy of my outreach. I've partly qualified them and move them to the next stage. So that then moves to SAL. So that's how I would build my list criteria, right? Is there a lead associated with this contact record that is now in attempting criteria, right? And then from there, if they move through that lead object, attempting to connected to qualified, that means that there's a meeting booked and a deal gets created at the end of that process. and that's one of the default toggle options for lead object. I do have a deal get created, and that is when it moves into SQL, sales qualified lead. It's been qualified by an SDR, an AE. A deal is created, and for us, we call it the safety meeting stage, but that's our further qualification stage. After that meeting, that in that first deal stage, if it moves on through the rest of the deal stage, it's going to move into opportunity. Right? That's when we want that to happen. And so that's the list that we would build for that, which would then kick off the workflow to move the lifecycle stage. Once they get to a closed won deal, they get moved into onboarding. And then we have onboarding processes. And Chris, I know you're gonna hound me for this one, but we do it through tickets. And so once things run through that ticket stage, and it's the closed one of the ticket process, the ticket pipeline, then it would move into our renewal expansion cycle, right? So that's how all of our lists are built there. And then there's some caveats, right? Not everything is going to go through that engaged MQL stage. You might have a sales rep who's outbounding, or they're at an event and they meet someone, they create a contact and then associate a lead, and it just goes straight to the SAL stage, right? The sales accepted lead. So, and those are all built into our criteria as well. So at this stage, after we've built all those lists, those criteria lists, we would want to look at the lead object, right? How do we, when a lead score moves, when a lead score crosses the threshold, an MQL, a lead gets created, assigned to a rep, like how do you do all that stuff, right? And that's where you got to get pretty creative. And so I build out workflows to do that. And there's 3 workflows, because ultimately what I want to know when a lead is created from marketing, it's what was the latest source, right? Did that lead come from a demo request? Did they come from an event interaction? Are they a hot lead? Are they a warm lead? What is the information that the salesperson needs to see on that lead record to identify how to engage with them? What do they know about us already, right? And so we want to make sure but the interesting thing is you can't import leads. And so you have to do everything on the contact level. You gotta have that latest source stamped on there. You gotta have, the event name, whatever it is. And then you got to build a workflow to copy that over to the lead when it gets created and assigned. Does that make sense?
Yep. I'll say you can't import leads natively, right? There are some mechanisms you can use to import a list and then create leads, based on that list.
You need to connect with me on that. I would love to see what you know.
That was me and Max last week. They're the first app to successfully use the leads object in their app integration.
All right.
So very cool.
Very good.
Yep.
So
and I just want to take a second, to the point here, a lot of situations we might just be talking about this in HubSpots and clicking through HubSpot, and we're talking about some cool stuff, but the story starts here, where what Emerson has done is created a common language, both visually and definitions, clear definitions of what all these different stages mean, so that when we're seeing HubSpot and we're seeing the words in HubSpot and we're seeing this visual, we connect it to the definition. Now we can actually make the salesperson's life easier, because they can understand, and we're all talking the same language at all times about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think a part of the why here, as you're describing this, and the reason, sales accepted lead is important. One of the things this allows us to do now is look back and say, hey, what signal was there? What data did we see that caused us to start spending sales resources on this thing? Because that spend of resources, which happens here, has been largely, we'll just say hard to measure and hard to track. And now you can and definitely should track it, because that is, there's a lot of resources spent in this spot that, the system is blind to in most cases.
Yeah. I mean, prior to the lead object, you really had your original source and you had your latest source, and anything in between was lost, unless you had some very complex workflows. And
Right.
now you can have original source for your contact, and then you can have latest source for every single lead that comes through. And you can have a lead created from any point in the lifecycle stage and know exactly how many times this person has come through our processes. It might be 5, 6, 7, 8 times before they become a customer. And we can track all that now.
Right. Yeah. And Pedro makes a couple good points here, but I think we're on the same page here about just creating a space in the CRM. Like, what is happening on the way to trying to build relationships, close deals, build customer relationships? There's so much data that we could be tracking, and that's where a lot of times you might rely on these external systems of intent data and just I'm paying for data. They don't care about your CRM and the way you do things. So they give you data that's important to them. We've talked about this with event management, platforms as well. When you start to track this stuff in your own system and it's right next to your sales process and your reporting, now you have complete visibility and actual decision-making power based on what the system is telling you, not just like, gut reactions everywhere. So I've heard some, like, definitely agree, Pedro, there's some opportunity to use, and when I use the word signal, this is kind of, what I'm talking about, is being able to like, track, like, I saw this person on LinkedIn and decided to send a connection. They were on this page and track it in a different way so that you associate it with the other objects and can point, okay, this is exactly when the lead was created and when the meeting got, generated was related to this thing. I think there's some opportunity to use the leads object in this way if we're going to be creating like multiple lead objects per, per contact or per company. But definitely a good thought there. So yeah, ultimately we've created a common language. Everybody's speaking the same language, understanding what all these different words mean, so that it just removes this like this need to understand the screen like every time you look at it. And now you can actually do your job, and that's where adoption comes in, and the magic can happen. So we've got this in place. We've got our lists built for each of these stages. Workflow time. Actually, you did say something that I wanted to. So your MQL stage is what generates the lead object. Yes?
That is one of the ways, yes.
One of the ways, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say if that was your only way, we used to, let's see, maybe it's here. There was, so lead creation, this is in the lead settings, right? So if you come into settings, objects, leads, right? So if this is the only way that you want a lead object to be created is based on stage, you can use this without, setting up automation. And so we say the automation is create a new lead action when a contact moves to a lifecycle stage of marketing qualified lead. So that's already in place.
Drawbacks.
What's that?
Drawbacks.
Right.
There's drawbacks here.
Yeah. What are those drawbacks?
Well, if you're basing on lifecycle stage, let's say you have someone download a case study and they MQL, right? They move to the MQL stage based on your lifecycle stage lists. Now, what happens if a salesperson works that lead? They start making some phone calls, emails. They never get hold of that person. But that lead then moves to SAL. They move to sales accepted lead in the lifecycle stage. And then what happens next time they download a case study or they book a demo request? You don't get a lead created because they're never going to be an MQL again.
That's an excellent point. So, and if we can, so this edit is just about life cycle stages, right? And we
Yeah.
basically have already decided that we're not going to rely on any of these native tools, to do that for us. So this is another thing we're going to turn off. And I remember when leads first became a thing, like this was auto on, and just like people were surprised when they saw their prospecting space for the first time.
It was nice and full,
to say the least. Okay, so we turn that off. Do you? So these stages: new, attempting, connected, qualified, disqualified. Are we updating that here?
Let's update
Looks
it.
like
Yeah, let's
already.
talk a bit about that.
Okay.
So I have some extra stages. Let me go into my portal real quick and double check that I got them all right. I changed that qualified to very specific for us. I changed it to meeting booked just to avoid any sort of confusion.
Yes.
Right? That's the whole point of what we're doing here. I added some disqualified stages because I didn't like the word disqualified for one. I added recycle. And what this is people who came through that should, they were perfectly otherwise qualified leads. We just couldn't get a hold of them, or they declined a meeting, and we want marketing to nurture them, right? And this is a perfect place to do that. We can see that people came through. And then there's specific, I have a property unsuccessful outreach reason, right? Unable to get a hold of them, so that has to be set when someone moves a lead to recycle, they have to fill in that property, right? Disqualification reason, I just created a specific one for recycle.
Yeah.
And then disqualified, I keep as disqualified, but that's really for people. And then I actually have a workflow that will disqualify that contact and move them to other life cycle stage, right? And this is for people who should never be coming through our sales funnel for some reason.
Okay, say that one again.
Yeah. So if a lead comes through that is truly disqualified, like this is not somebody we should be engaging with, then they can move to disqualified in the lead stage. And then there's a workflow that kicks off that will also disqualify the contact and move them to other life cycle stage.
Okay.
And our reps know to not work contacts, leads. Marketing knows not to market to anybody in other life cycle stage.
Right.
Yep.
Makes sense. Okay. So we've got new, attempting, connected, meeting book, disqualified, recycle. Are we requiring properties anywhere else?
No, I do keep that checked though. The meeting booked. I do require a deal to be created there. Ultimately, that's the goal. You don't have to do that. I found that it's nice.
Right.
And I actually ask anybody who creates any AE who creates a deal to do it through through the leads object from now on, just to track everything. Yeah.
Yes. And this is where education up front, like this, like the what and the why behind what I'm asking you as a salesperson to do. In a lot of situations, most salespeople, like if they're responsible for their deals list, they're like, I don't want any other mechanisms creating deals. I need to do it every time. But when you show them this, and it's all in the context of why we do it this way, this the kind of the connections you need to make. Like if you really want them engaging with these other pieces of the system, how can we make something they're used to doing manually a little bit easier? And that's where this automatic creation of a deal comes into play. And why we do the work up front to make sure we can keep this on, because it is in the best interest of the team to have mechanisms like this in place and used.
And I have the backup. I have the good fortune of being the one who drives the metrics and reports on the metrics and calls them out in public. So it's like, if you don't, you will only have your deals created being reported on and sent out to the public and to our CEO and everyone else if they've come through a lead.
Yes.
So
exactly.
It helps enforce naturally. So
right. Yep. Accountability is still important. But again, once everybody knows, it's not like it moves from like, big brother mentality to, oh yeah, this is like clearly we should be doing it this way. And now if everybody is like, we're all winning, right?
Yep.
So a question from Pedro here. What do you think about using the reason to move the lead to a recycle sequence?
Well, yeah, ultimately, like that's for marketing to understand. I have a drop down list. And if we say this is recycled because we didn't, outreach was unsuccessful, that's good information for marketing. But what if they're like, oh, this isn't it's a budget issue. They're not willing to meet right now or whatever. Well, marketing can actually build lists on that and say, this for us, that might be, oh, this is a budgetary issue. We found a source of funding. Let's send out this marketing email saying, hey, did you know that you can use this pool of funding to purchase our product? Like, right. So it's just really, really targeted. And that's the beauty of this lead object is we're collecting super valuable information throughout the entire process. And we do not want to lose that. Right.
Yes, indeed. And he had a clarification. Sorry, lost reason. So with lost reason, do you mean on the deal or still in the lead? I guess disqualified versus recycle. So maybe you're thinking like instead of this recycle stage, like using one of these other properties. Okay.
Yeah, for recycle,
Right.
we have a customized recycle reason.
Right.
That's used there, and then disqualified has a disqualification reason specific to it. Yeah, any of those closed loss stages will have, more targeted data.
Cool. Okay, so we've got this set up. Why wouldn't I want to just go here to, create some workflows related to this?
Yeah, let me take a look and see what's in there. I got to remind myself because I stay away from there for the most part. The last connected. So I do use some of those. What do I have? So set meeting date. I have some date stamps, and that's the only thing I do there, which is pretty usual for me. I will only like do date stamps because it's just an easy place. It's like anytime something is here, do this so I can track like when it
Okay.
happened.
So can we make an example of that?
Yeah. So go ahead and do like let's see, a meeting booked, create a workflow there. And then I do a set property value. And then I have a meeting booked date property. I actually don't know if that's, I don't think that is native, but maybe it is. Let's give it a try.
Okay, let's see, date.
No, so I have a custom date property that I use to stamp in that meeting book date.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't really reported on that or used it. So there's sometimes I'll do things where I'm like, this will be useful in the future.
Right.
But yeah, lead name can work great.
And we'll just say date here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but yeah, like this is where like when you start to understand all the building blocks of the system, and which steps you need to go through before you start utilizing these things, like it's pretty brilliant how like somebody new can come into the system and start to build their knowledge and then, get more advanced use cases in place. So like we started from the beginning here with just a button click, right? Now you have this like, simplified version of the workflows tool that we can start understanding. Okay, if I'm in this, because when you get to the workflows tool, I don't have this framework, like these stages to help me understand how I'm going to build out the workflow. So having this in leads, anywhere there's pipelines, so leads, deals, tickets, and custom objects, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more pipeline stuff moving forward. this is a helpful like kind of bridge to say, because pipelines really drive, most of the automation that you're going to be working with, in my opinion. So having this context certainly helps you put it into perspective. But we're going to, take advantage of the full workflows tool.
Yep.
So we'll jump over to there. And again, this is automations workflows. So we'll go ahead and bookmark it here. And yeah, so we'll see some workflows that I made with Max last week related to events. And just like pro tip here, if you're coming into a new system, or if you're new coming into a system that's already been managed, like please take time to understand, what's already there. The last thing you want to do is either duplicate a bunch of work that's already been done or start to create conflict, especially in the workflow space. But that being said, let's create some stuff.
Yeah. So I like to work from I like to create folders. I have a MQL architecture folder. Just helps me keep things organized.
That's the name of it.
MQL architecture. Yeah. MQL. Now this was created. Mike Romano was my colleague he's a RevOps analyst, and he built these beautiful systems and named it MQL architecture, which I loved.
Awesome. Yeah. Architecture is the right word.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to create a workflow from here.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of like think about what we're doing ultimately here, right? This is like the multiple reasons that something can MQL, right? Maybe it comes from a list import from an event, or the event's object, the event happily was app, I guess is what they're calling it, right? So what are all the reasons that something could MQL where you need to automate lead creation, usually from marketing? I was thinking, imports, lead score, MQL, demo requests. There's all sorts of kind of different ways that can happen. But I run it through the contact object. So I do a contact-based workflow. And the first thing that I'm going to do is collect all the information and make sure that that marketing has the data that they need stamped on that MQL contact, right? That can then be carried over to the lead.
Okay. Yeah. So we're doing a blank workflow here?
Yep.
All right. Next. And what are we naming this thing?
This one, we called it, 01, 01, input contact source info.
Contact source info. I mean, systems like this 01, they're invaluable,
mm-hmm.
When you have everybody sticking to them. Like mm-hmm. they just make the work so much easier.
Yeah. So triggers, right. We're going to keep it simple, but you could have complexity here based on your situation, right? The many reasons that something could need to create a lead. We'll do when an event occurs, and we'll just stick to lead score. Crossing a certain threshold, right? Would want to trigger this workflow. I have a custom property for it, but I believe a HubSpot score could suffice for our example.
Okay, and we need properties here. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Property value changed. Predicted lead score. HubSpot. Let's use HubSpot score. Yeah. And I know Pedro. Used. He built out a custom lead scoring based on some recommendations and some. I have a tool like a calculator kind of thing. So he was using that and enjoyed it. So
awesome.
Yeah. And then greater than X. Whatever. We use 25 for ours. Start there. Yeah, and that should do it. Now you can also set some other properties in here. Actually, we would do it on a later one. So let's forget I just said anything. Okay. And then what I create a branch for the next. And what we're going to want to say is what is marketing needs to know, like where did this come from? What were so I do a branch on latest source. And then depending on where it came from, I want to update some contact properties.
So are we doing or one property?
It's so, I always forget. Yeah, it's just different,
Okay.
right? Isn't that? Yeah, branch. Okay. So then the branch is going to be original source. And then we're going to do, let me think about this. If the criteria is met, first check if there's sources any of these. Sorry, I'm going through my thing here as we look.
Event.
Yeah, let's do that. And then actually, event's going to come in as an offline source for
Okay.
us. Let's do organic search, for example. Yep. And then criteria. Let's do original contact properties, original source. Sorry, latest source, not original source. We want to make sure that we're updating with the most current, like what triggered this lead to be created, right? Yep. And then, that should do. Yep, latest source, perfect. So that's branch 1. Branch 2, let's do demo request as an example. Yep. And then this is going to here. We just has filled out a particular form, whatever your demo request is.
Website. Do event lead capture form.
Yep. Yeah, right. And we can even say that's an event. Whatever. Okay. Yeah. So
and then in most cases, are you creating a something went wrong, nothing happened branch? Notify Emerson.
Yes. Yeah. So if nothing happened, we get notification, which is pretty standard for us.
Yeah. So error branch. What does it say for now?
Yep.
Actually, it's built in. If none of the criteria are met, go here.
Yeah. And that's where we put our
branch.
Perfect.
All right.
Yep. And we have one for like all of the different criteria, right? Of what all this can be. And then, so I've actually did create some custom properties for a lot of this on the contact, right? It is original source. I keep saying original source, latest source. Is if it's organic search, then we would want to stamp. I have a contact source department, which would be marketing, right? Because all this we're going to want to carry over to that lead for where that lead was created. So I want contact source department as a property, and I set that to marketing. Contact source 2 is a property that I have, and that's website, right? Organic search. Contact source name, SEO, organic traffic, right? So this allows my marketing team, our head of marketing is like, I need to track this stuff. This is what, this is what she is. That's her criteria for like if she's doing a good job or not, right?
Okay. So basically this workflow's job is to fill in these contact properties.
Yep, exactly.
Correct. Okay.
Yep. And at the end of each of those branches, and you can do it however you want, we decided to go to our next workflow in the process, which we need to create first before we can point to it.
Okay. So review and publish this one. Mm-hmm. Next. Lots of cool stuff now to make sure your workflows are doing what you intend. Mm-hmm. Lots of checks and balances, more than ever before. That's for sure. Yep. So we'll just create. I wonder, since we're kind of nearing the end, mm-hmm. would you be willing to kind of share your fully built out?
Yeah, definitely.
One.
Yeah. Share my screen here. Present. Mm-hmm. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this is the next flow, right? So from the previous one at the end, it stamps all of those source properties on the contact level. The next thing that we need to do is we need to figure out who the lead should go to, and that needs to be stamped as a HubSpot user property on the contact level. So the contact object has a lead owner property, HubSpot user property. And then it runs through this workflow, right? Gets pushed out, that contact record gets pushed over here. It checks the branches. Is it for us public safety? Is it everything else? Is it DOT? Where does it go to, right? And then from there, so we have a couple different divisions. Our public safety is geo territories. And so then it runs through and figures out what state is this in. And then if it's in a state, a particular region, it's going to stamp that contact lead owner property with the right person. And then it's going to go to the next workflow, right? That makes sense. And then we have one division that is this, everything else gets round robin between 5 reps. And then everything runs to this next workflow. So this is just stamping the lead owner on the contact record. And then let's check out what happens with this last workflow that does everything. So this is a this is a contact-based workflow. So it can re-enroll in this because we want to make sure that they can, this can happen multiple times, right? I have 2 branches here. If a demo requests, we use Chili Piper, right? So if someone books a meeting with a rep on our calendar, it's going to be slightly different. And we want that, the only difference is that we want when the lead is created, that it gets moved and meeting booked and a deal gets created. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. And here's what happens. A lead gets created, assigned to no one. It takes that property from the lead owner property from the contact record and sets the lead owner as that, copies it over, copies the lead label over, right? Is this a hot lead, a warm lead? What is this? It copies the lead source department. This would be marketing in most cases, right? Over to the lead record. It copies over, where did this lead source come from? Was it an event? Was it SEO? How did that come to us? Lead source name. This is a very definitive, like this was a demo request. This was this particular event, right? And then source details. It's got a little bit more info there for marketing to track. Contact source department. Where did it come from? This is interesting. Is this a double up? I'm not sure why these got doubled up, but I'll have to take a look. But in any case, you get the idea, right? We're making sure that all these properties are stamped on the lead. When it gets created, it assigns, and then they're going to show up in new for our salespeople to work in their prospecting workspace. And then they're going to be able to see all of these properties within that, a little window into the contact record.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like, especially in the last workflow, I mean, there's so many cases where this doesn't happen because you think your special, way that you got to work with a region over here, and there might be a couple people, it might be internal, might be external. So I can only manage that in a spreadsheet because I can't trust any automation. But then over here, I've got an individual that they're the only person responsible for this, right? Emerson just showed that you could do both in the same workflow where you're assigning to individual people over here and you're round robining over here. Yep. And especially if you're paying for enterprise, this is the exact stuff you should be doing immediately in your portal. This is why one would think you are paying for enterprise, right? And yeah, just some magical stuff. Again, only if you do all these building blocks, right? We didn't even look at the prospecting workspace, and it's easy to go and see those outcomes that the system generates on its own and either get overwhelmed or let the system start telling you how you should be doing the thing. At the end of the day, you need to understand how HubSpot can work for your business, not how your business can work for HubSpot, right? HubSpot doesn't want you to do that, even though they definitely want you to buy more HubSpot and be a HubSpot customer. If you don't do that, it's not going to help you grow, and then you're not going to be a customer, right? So it's very important to kind of take these steps. And I mean, honestly, the best instances of HubSpot and really any of these systems is when you have a person like Emerson dedicated to system build out, system management, system strategy, and the days of being able to give the HubSpot hat to somebody that's been with you for a while and they just know all the customers and they know how things work. So so they can just take care of HubSpot. They can't. They can't. HubSpot makes it easy for you to come in and do stuff. But when you're thinking full customer platform and you have access to all the hubs, you need somebody who, this is a full-time job, right? So, but then when you connect that to the outcome that we saw at the beginning of the call, where the sales guy is telling us how much easier his job is, like, that's why we're doing all this stuff, right, man?
Yep. Well, yeah, and then also the data that you can capture and the insights into the business that your C-suite can have. Like, it's all that from the person using it to the person seeing the results. Like,
yes, and everything in between. Like, this is how you make decisions based on trusted data, based on agreeable data, based on everybody understanding what's going on and why they're working in the system. Then you just overcome this adoption hurdle to whatever it be. Either I trust these reports or I trust the process I'm being asked to do. And now we start thinking, bigger and better. Like, oh, what if we could do this? What if that's my favorite moment to get to, is when you have these stakeholders that may have been challenging, to work with up to this point. But as soon as you reach that point of clarity, and it's different for every single one of them, unfortunately, as soon as you get to that moment where they start suggesting how something could be better, you're like, jackpot, right? And now everybody starts doing that, and we all build a better system together. And generally, that's what growth, that's what successful growth looks like. So I commend you, man, to kind of grab these, to jump in when there wasn't a lot of lead, architecture, resources out there. There still isn't, honestly. So hopefully this can be, a resource for some people, to really take the time and think through this setup of the system. So thank you for taking the time, man. It's been great to see it.
Yeah. No, happy to share. And then thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as you're building your leads, find these opportunities to help out your sales team and your go-to-market teams, and let's grow, people. Have a great day.
Cool. Thanks.